A few Thursdays ago, I went to an RE conference in Cardiff. Now, I wasn't invited to go, I sort of tagged along, if you know what I mean. I was a stowaway, if you like, at the conference. But I did quite enjoy it. The food was lovely, as you can imagine. And what was lovely was, as I walked into the room, just in time, there were lots of people from different bits of my world. Do you know, have you ever been to one of those parties where lots of people from different bits of your life come together and it's a bit awkward? Well, that's how I felt in that room. Because I had school teachers who, of course, are part of our lovely schools here in the parish. They were there. The high schools were there. But then I had schools where I'd been in the past, where I'd been on placement as I trained. And just to make me feel a little bit older, there were people there for whom I was in school with, and for whom they've got real jobs. And they work really hard. One person I was in school with is now a head teacher down in Bridgend. So it's quite incredible to see all the different bits of my world come together. And as you know now, schools are a really important part of my ministry. I really, really love those children. And since being ordained, there's one thing that I have learned that's so significant, that's so important in being involved in any school, that far surpasses anything else that you'll experience in the school. Mrs. Land is wondering what on earth's going on at the moment. And that is that the awards assembly is sacrosanct. If you're a teacher or you've been involved in a school, you'll appreciate the importance and the significance of that Friday awards assembly. Isn't that true? I can see some teachers in the audience. I learned the hard way during the 2024 St. David's Day debacle down at Our Lady's, where we had such a wonderful day last year to celebrate one of our parish patron saints. We had the Eisteddfod, which was incredible, which showcased lots of the talents of our children, and they were recognised and awarded for it. And then in amongst all of that, in amongst the celebration, of course, we had the St. David's Day Mass down in the school with yours truly, who was amazing, by the way, just a little aside. And then at the end of the day, a group of children came to one of the teachers and said, "Miss, what about our awards assembly?" And they were quite put out and quite upset to discover that on that fateful Friday, there was no awards assembly. We haven't lived it down ever since. A dark moment. The awards assembly is a really, really special time of the week where those children have the chance to celebrate their achievements that they've made throughout the course of the week. And if you've ever experienced such an event as an awards assembly, you will see how the honour that that child feels, the gratitude, if you like, overflows in an emotion from within them, and they sort of live it externally. So what they feel inside, that jubilation, that being proud of the achievements they've made, overflows, becomes external. We see it in the smiles of the children. We see it in perhaps the little shouts, the fist bump in the air, the running down to get their award from the teacher. We see it in the applause that their peers give them. When we reflect on that blessed, that one little word, blessed, in the gospel, it's almost like a litany, isn't it? Blessed are, blessed are. That blessed comes with the depth of emotion that those children feel and experience in that awards assembly. It's much more than just being content. It's much more than happy, as some translations of the Bible describe it. It's much more than that. It comes from the pit of your soul, and that blessedness overflows and begins to overwhelm us. That's the emotion that the gospel writers wanted to convey to us when Jesus says, "Blessed are." It comes from here. It overflows. Now let's go back to the awards assembly. I'd like to do an alternative awards assembly. And this time, I'd like to present the award for the most disruptive person in the class. Not always a child, by the way. Just going to put that out there. I'd like to give an award for the child who has vandalized their table the best. Do you remember those days where you used to have a thing, you used to scrape your initial with like a little love heart around? Remember those days in high school? Them were the good old days. I'd like to give an award for that one child who's instigated that game of British Bulldogs at lunchtime. Remember that game? Despite the fact it's been banned, I think, for about 30 years, I think. We get a sense, don't we, of the unease as I share that sort of discomfort and a bit, so sort of a bit off. This is the intended response that the people listening to Jesus in that gospel today would have experienced. Just have a reflection for a moment, perhaps, on the feeling of your unease as I share that alternative assembly. Perhaps the sort of that experience of jarring. Why are you awarding the most disruptive person in the class? Whoever that teacher is. That is the experience that those people would be feeling. That's the feeling, that's the emotion that comes from the radicalness of what Jesus is saying. And if we can feel that just sort of there, just like a sort of a bit of indigestion, like a Gaviscon in the house, but if you sort of feel that jarring, now we are really part of the crowd. But I think we can sanitize our experience of scriptures so much that we lose something important from them. We lose that emotion. We lose that response. So let's stay with that jarring just for a moment. As we sit with the Beatitudes, what we see is that the faith that we receive from Jesus himself is something radical. It perhaps doesn't sit right. It does involve a total reversal of what we perceive those human values of flourishing to be. A total reversal, if you like, of those worldly markers which are pertaining to our flourishing. That what we discover is that our authentic beatitude, our authentic flourishing perhaps, is not actually attached to the confines of wealth, for example, or power, or even a good reputation, or even the accumulation of worldly stuff. I think that the image which the prophet Jeremiah shares in that first reading is really powerful for us, because I think it describes that beatitude and the living of that beatitude really, really well. He uses the image of that tree, doesn't he? Planted by water. What does he say? That sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when the heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and is not anxious in the year of drought, because it does not cease to bear fruit. Authentic beatitude blessedness, flourishing, is only to be found complete by being completely rooted in Jesus himself. This then is the radicalness of the proclamation of the gospel, the radicalness of what Jesus is sharing with us. This is the good news. Let us keep our eyes fixed to Jesus. Amen.